We're going to be creating a 360 logo. To get started, I want you to reset your colors down here. So double or just single click here to set it back to black and white. Make sure your workspace is set to Essentials. So click here and set that, and let's create our file. File New. I want you to call it 360 logo. Set the document type to web because we're going to put this directly onto the web, and we're going to set it to a very specific size that you see here, web 1280 by 800. Select that. Make sure that your background contents are set to white. You don't really need to worry about the advanced color profile, but let's go ahead and leave it at don't color manage this document. Let Photoshop do the work and click OK. So now we've got our file created. Select View and fit it on the screen. We're all set. I'm going to want to create this logo using the text tool. So I'm going to come over here and click on the layers panel to open it up, and I'm going to drag here to expand it. So I want to go ahead and create some text. So I'm going to come find my type tool. Here it is. When I select the type tool, I have options for type up here. I'm going to go ahead and choose the font I want to use. I'm going to go ahead and use something fairly simple, Arial, and I want to make sure this is set to black. You can use whatever font style you like, just make sure it's readable. I'm going to change the size of this to 72. I want it to be smooth, and I'm going to go ahead and leave it left aligned, and I'm ready to go. And I'm just going to click my first name. Click type, and I'm going to write my first name. Now I'm going to highlight it, drag my mouse over it, and right here I have an option to arc it or do some other warp text function. I'm going to select the arc, and I want it arced all the way, so I'm going to drag this bend all the way to the right so it's a complete 180-degree arc, and click OK. Now I've got my first name placed here. I now want to duplicate the layer, flip it vertically, and flip it horizontally. To do that, I'll select the layer in the Layers panel. I'm going to use my drop down here and duplicate this layer. There are other ways to do it, but we'll use that. I'll go ahead and leave it as Pamela Copy and click OK. Now I've got two layers here, the original and the copy. I'll turn them both on for the moment. I want to take the copy, I want to flip it. So I'll select the layer, I'll go to Edit and Transform, and I'm going to flip it vertically first. Move it down, get in position. Make sure you're in your Move tool when you're doing all this. Now select Edit again, Transform, and I'm going to flip it horizontally. So it goes Pamela and Pamela. Now I also want to just position it so I'm happy with that, where it's at, and I want to resize it. So I'm going to select both layers, hold my Shift key down on my keyboard, and click on the layer underneath to select both. Now I'm going to select Edit and Free Transform, hold down my Shift key again, grab it in the corner, not here in the middle part, but in the corner, and drag and resize this a bit, reposition it, and check it so that I've resized this logo. I'm going to start with this top layer here, and what I want to do is add some layering styles to the Pamela copy. So I'll select the layer. Down at the bottom of your layers window is the FX button, which lets you get to layer styles. You could also use the drop down menu and go ahead and select blending options if you want, or come up to layer at the top, go down to Layer Style and Blending Options. All of those will help you access the Blending Options panel. So I'll go ahead and select Blending Options, and I'm going to decide which ones I want to use. I have my preview turned on. I'm going to start with the drop shadow. Now if I just select the box for drop shadow, it will turn it on, but notice the drop shadow menu doesn't appear. I need to click on the actual word drop shadow, and that brings up the drop shadow options. While you're here, you get to choose what mode you want to use. I'm going to change it to darker color. I'm going to change my mode drop down, my blending mode drop down, to a different shade that I want to use. I'm going to come down and you can choose whatever you want. I'm going to use a deep red and select OK. I can change the opacity of this drop down shadow if I want. So I'm going to set it to about 70 right in there. I can change the distance. I can make it come off further, or the spread, or the size. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and set these though at 10 and 10 and 10. So there's my drop shadow. Now you notice there's a lot of other layer styles we can use. I'm going to specifically choose the patterned overlay. I'm turning it on. Now I'm going to click on the word patterned overlay to bring up the patterned overlay menu. Now I want to hit this little tiny arrow here. It shows me all of the patterns I currently have loaded. If I don't see one I like, right now this purple one is chosen. Notice as I click on these, different patterns are applied. If I don't see one I like, anytime you see this little settings option, it's kind of like a flower over here. If you click that, it brings up all the other patterns that are available. I'm going to select this legacy patterns, and if I click OK, it replaces them. I can cancel it, or I can append it, which means I want to add these patterns. I'm going to click append. So now I've got these other legacy patterns down here that I can use. And I'm going to just click on a couple of these so you see. And the one I want to use actually is this. You do not have to use this one. You can use a different one if you'd like. I can go ahead and click out of that. I can scale it up so the pattern is more dramatic, or back down. I'm going to leave it right about there. I'm happy with these two options that I've chosen, so I'm going to add one more, and that's a stroke. So I'm clicking on the word stroke, and I'm going to set that stroke up to 10. That's a little too much. I don't like that, so I'm going to set it back down to 5. I like that better. And I can choose whether it's an inside or outside stroke. I like the outside stroke better. I can change the blend mode in here if I want of the stroke. I can change its opacity. Is it going to be very see-through, or do I want to pull it up, pull it up, pull it up? I'm going to leave it at full strength. I can change the color of the stroke if I want by clicking here and choosing a new color that I'd like to use for the stroke. I actually like the black better, so I'm going to leave the black and click OK. Now I have everything chosen. As you're doing this, you can choose different options here, but make sure you choose something that you're pleased with and you would like to keep. Now I'm going to click OK, and you notice here I've got an FX, and these effects, stroke, patterned, and overlay. Now I can turn those off if I want, turn them back on. I can try different ones on and off until I'm like, I like this. I'm going to leave it just as it is. In this step, I want to take the effects that I applied to this top layer and just copy them down to the layer underneath instead of recreating them. So I'm going to select the layer that you see here, and there's a couple of ways I can do it. One is to select it and come up to Layer, go down to Layer Style, and notice there's a Copy Layer Style right there. I'll select it. Now I'm going to select the layer I want to put it on, and again, Layer, Layer Style, and this time I want to paste that layer style. So it automatically takes everything I did on this layer and it pastes it to the layer underneath. Now that was using the drop-down layer menu. Keep in mind that when we're working with layer styles, I can also check here and see if there's an option to copy and paste in the layer styles. Not in this one. I can right-click the layer using my mouse, and I can check for copy the layer style, and there's paste the layer style and clear it. So there's a second way to access the paste and copy for the layer style itself. Whenever you're creating a logo, you want to try out different versions of it. Now I've got my basic logo set that I created this first time through, and what I want to do is put these in a group folder. So I'm going to select this folder down here and click, and it creates a new group. And let's see, I'm going to collapse it for a moment. I'm going to take each of these layers and drag them and drop them inside my group folder. Right, so if I turn this off, I've got them inside this group folder. I want to grab this one too and drag it and put it in. Now they're both in there, so I can collapse it, turn it off and on. So I've created a group with these two different layers inside. I'm going to double click that and rename it Logo 1 and press enter. Now keep in mind I can right click and get to the options inside my right click menu. I can hit my drop down to work for options in here, or I can go to layer and rename the group or layer in my drop downs. So we've renamed it. What I want to do is duplicate it. I want to duplicate the whole folder. So I'm going to select it, and I'm going to use the method here to hit the drop down and duplicate the group. I'm going to call it Logo 2 and enter. So now I've created a complete copy, if I open this up, of the layers that I created previously in Logo 1. All right, we're ready to go on editing this logo next. Now that I have duplicated this logo, I want to try a few different things with it. One, I'm going to turn off Logo 1, and I'm going to lock it. Let's turn that back on for a second. Lock it first and then turn it off so I'm not editing this particular layer. I'll open up Logo 2, and I'm going to do a couple things. One, I want to go into my effects and make some changes to it. So I can double click this, and that'll put me right back in layer styles. By the way, I can come down here and select blending options, and that will put me in layer styles. I can use my drop down menus here at the top of the layers panel and get to layer styles by going to the blending options. These are all ways to get there, or go to layer style, blending options. All of those will get you into the blending options mode. So I'm here. One thing I want to do is start by taking off this patterned overlay. I'm also going to take off this stroke, and I'm going to take off this drop shadow. So I'm starting fresh here. I want to come and try a few different things. I'm going to start with a gradient overlay instead. I'm going to come down here and choose a gradient overlay that I might want to use. I'll try a few different ones out until I find something I'm happy with. I'm going to set the opacity way up here because I want to be able to see this a little bit better. I clicked on this and it brings up all the current ones that are active. So I can try those out. I can also come over here and load additional gradients. Click on load. And if you have additional preset gradients out here, you can load them. I don't actually have any, but if you did, you could grab them. I'm going to cancel that for the moment. Or I can just create my own unique logo gradient for this logo. I'm going to drag these over, reposition them a bit. I want to change this color, so I'm going to double click this color stop, and I want to change it to a different shade of blue. So I'm going to bring it in here to a much lighter blue, and click OK. So I've changed that. I'm going to double click this one. I'm going to drag this around a bit. I'm going to bring it into white. So I've got a white. I'm going to double click this one. Again, come in here. I want to come into a very dark blue. There we go. And I'm going to take this one completely off. I'm going to hold my mouse down and drag it and get rid of it. Now I'm going to reposition these guys. So I'm just dragging these around a bit until I'm happy with how they're looking. I'm going to drag this diamond in. Okay. Bring this over a bit. Bring this one over a bit. So you get the idea. I'm going to adjust this till I'm happy with the results. Now I really don't like this white one right here, so I'm going to drag it off. And I'm going to reposition this in the middle. And I'm much happier with the way this gradient looks at the moment. So I've got a nice gradient going there. I do want to add a stroke back. So I'm going to click on stroke. But I'm going to change the stroke. I'm going to click on this color picker. And I really want to pick a color out here. So notice I drag my mouse off the color picker. I'm going to click on this dark blue for my stroke. I'm going to try out a couple until I'm happy with the result. I think I will want to use this dark blue, so I'm going to click on it and select, let's see, let's drag it down there. I'm happy there. I'm going to select OK, and now I've got this dark blue stroke added, and I'm going to click OK. So now I've got these effects added to that. So I want to get rid of these here. I don't want to have to duplicate everything. So I'm going to select effects and drag it and put it in the trash. Try that again. Put it in the trash. Isn't that working? We've duplicated this group folder. I want to come to logo 1 quickly. I want to lock it so I don't accidentally edit that particular group folder or the layers. And I'm actually going to turn off their display as well. So I'm focused on logo to open it up. What I want to do is replace these effects with new effects. So I can double click this and it will take me into the layer style. Remember also though, I can use the FX down underneath, or I can use the drop down menu here. All of those will get me into the layer styles, or I can select the layer drop down from up here. Now I'm inside the layer style. I am going to turn off the patterned overlay altogether, and I'm going to turn off the stroke. So I have just simple black text. I'm also going to change my drop shadow. I'm going to click it on the word drop shadow, and I want to change the color of this drop shadow to a bright green. Okay, maybe a little bit darker there. I like that better. I'll click OK. I'm going to set the opacity all the way up so it's very dark, and I'm going to bring this down to just 5 and 5 and 5. So I've brought that down. The next thing I want to do is add a gradient overlay. So I'm going to click on gradient overlay. I've got my options here. How do I want to blend it? I can come and play around with those a bit till I feel happy with what I see. I'm going to actually leave it here at normal. This is the gradient underneath. I'm going to set it all the way up so it's really strong gradient. I'm going to hit my down arrow here, and I can play around and try different gradients that are default gradients that are loaded. Try different ones out, see if I see one I like. Okay, so you can see I'm trying out different ones. So I'm going to go with this very colorful rainbow gradient. If I select that, instead of hitting the arrow, I hit the actual mini gradient image right here. It brings up the gradient editor. Now I can create a custom gradient, and that's what I want to do. I'm going to get rid of the red. I just drag it off, and I'm going to get rid of this red over here too. I'm going to reposition these a little bit. Okay, so I'm changing these around. I can grab up here and change how it's applied. Notice as I get closer to the blue, it changes how these are positioned. I can grab this and drag it around. So readjust it as you wish. I want to add a new color, so I'm going to move my mouse up and it turns into a hand. Do you see that? When it turns into a hand, I click and I can add a new color stop here. If I want to edit that color stop, I don't want to use this color, I simply select it and I can double click it, or I can click down here and I'm bringing up the color picker and I'm going to choose a different shade of blue, a little bit lighter blue there. I like that better, and click OK. So drag down to get rid of it, move up to add it, double click it to change its color, and play with these sliders till you're happy. So now I've got a new layering style that I've applied. So what I want to do is copy this to the one underneath. So I'm going to just turn this off here. You can see it's not there anymore. And I want to get rid of these. So I'm going to take this effects and put it in the trash. So those are gone, and I want to duplicate the effects for this layer. So remember, we can right click it, and you can't quite see that there. So I'm going to try it a little bit differently. I'm going to come up to layer and layer style, and I'm going to copy the new layer style, click on the layer underneath and layer style, and I'm going to paste the layer style. So remember, we have menus here to do these things, and we can use the layer up here, and in some cases we can right click and use the options within here to modify. Now we've got a new logo too. So I can look at these. Here's my first, here's my second. Now in this project, I'm going to want you to create 5 different versions of this logo. So you have to keep duplicating the group and then modifying the text. Now hopefully you've finished creating your 5 different logo designs. I've got 5 different folders here. Here was the original. Here's my second, my third, my fourth, and my fifth. So I want to do a few more things here on the 5th one. Starting with, I've got this text chosen. I'm going to select my type tool. I can highlight this text and I'm going to change the font style. So I'm going to try something a little different with it. Alright, so as you see, as I'm sliding down, different fonts are being chosen. And I want you to mix this up a bit. Choose different fonts. Alright, there's Cooper Black, so I'll select that. I'm going to come over here into the second one. Again, select the text, and I'm going to switch this also to Cooper Black. There it is. Click it. Now I'll have to do a little adjustments here. I'm going to drag this over and reposition it. So now I've got these 2 over here. The next thing I want you to try out on your different logos is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to switch this to a different arc. I'm going to come back to Warp Text and I'm going to try something different. There's the bulge. Here's the rise. A wave. So you get the idea. Shell, and so on. So all of these give you a different look to your particular text on how it's going to arc it. Once you've found one you think you might want to use, I'm going to come back to this rise. I can change the settings. How much do I want it to bend and what direction do I want it to bend in? So I want you to play around with these a little bit. I'm going to click OK. Now I'll need to select the same thing here. I'm going to grab it, come back to my Warp Text. I'm going to select Rise again, and I'm going to change the way it's rising. I'm changing the bend. So you get the idea. I want you to play with these different options, try out different things, and make sure you have a very good understanding of using your type tool and accessing the options up here. and also your layer styles underneath, applying different layering styles, copying those layer styles, and let's see what you can come up with. Now that we have our 5 different logos created, I want to save each of them out as their own individual JPEG or PNG file. So I'll select the first one, logo 5 here, File. I'm going to use the Save As option. I'm going to come down here and find PNG. Since we're not creating a photographic image, we're going to use PNG. And I'm going to change this to 360 logo, and this is the 5th one, so I'll put a 5 there. I want to navigate to my Documents folder. I'm going to create a new folder here, so I'm right-clicking, New, in Folder, and I'm going to call it 360 Logo. So that's where I'm going to put all of my files. Double-click and open it up. There goes number 5. Click OK. Turn this off, turn this on. Same thing, File, Save As, change this to a PNG. Since it's not a photographic image, but we do want to put it up on the web, we'll do this. And this is going to be logo 4, right? And we're already in Documents, 360 logo. I'll save it. And OK. Turn it off, go to the next one, File, Save As. And this will be 360 logo 3. And we want to change this to PNG again. And away it goes. Almost there. We just need to do 2 now. Turn off 3. File, Save As. Change it to PNG. And this is going to be logo 2. And away. And OK. And finally, our original one, File, Save As. Change this to PNG. Make sure it's in the right location. And 1. Save. And OK. So if I go and look inside my folders by clicking on my folder icon down at the bottom, I'm going to go to Documents. And if I look, there's the 360 logos. Open up the folder, and there are all of my logos that I created in this project.